যেটা বলার ছিল উম, is that have I told you anything regarding post memory or like that এর আগে কোনো ক্লাসে? Anyone please respond. Have I?
ना सर।
कुछ बोला था मैंने पोस्ट मेमोरी वगैरह ऐसा कुछ लेके?
नो
नो
सर।
सर, मेमोरी का लेके कुछ नहीं बोले थे।
ओके ठीक है। हम्म, So, let me tell you today first. With partition, I think these were discussed in the initial classes, but still, let me remind you while we read Anand's house. While we read partition stories, it has a very deep connection with our memories and what type of memories they are. Generally, I had said that partition memories are of two types, three types. Mm, the first generation memory, the second generation memory, and or you can say that the primary memories and the secondary memories, or rather the post memory. So let me just the postmemory.com gives you a kind of definition. Let me just put it in your chat box so that you can understand. Post-memory describes the relation that generation after bears to the personal, collective, and cultural trauma of those who came before, to experience to remember only by means of the stories, images, behaviors among which they grew up. So, I think while I was teaching or while I was taking the very initial classes regarding partition, I hope I had referred to the memories of your grandmothers, the memories of your grandfathers, the experiences of your parents, and how these experiences are transferred to you by their recollection. In spite of not getting direct taste of those experiences, you can still feel that you somehow bear a part of it as your heritage, isn't it? I think I had talked to you regarding this. So, this is what is post memory. But before we practically come to the concept of post memory, let me discuss again the three generations of memory, or rather, cultural memory. The first thing is that there are three questions, notable questions in this definition that I have given for Megha. I again paste it because Megha won't be able to see it. Look at the definition, Megha, and you will find that, or rather, let me share this screen. Uh, can you see? Can you see this tab, the post memory? देख पा रहे हो तुम लोग इसको? हेलो, कोई भी?
यस सर। यस सर।
So look at this. This name Marian Hirsch. Marian Hirsch is famous work. She has some good and famous works on post memory. But however, in this definition, you have three things: personal, collective, and cultural. These things. So we know what is personal. Personal means very much deeply rooted within the self. There are these types of memories or this type of experiences of your grandfathers and then your fathers. Then there are collectives like the family or the group or the whole locality when share an experience. Like partition, if you think. Partition didn't affect the individual only, it affected the whole family and also it affected the whole locality as well as the whole province, and two nations. So it is not anymore a personal memory, but it is a collective memory. And when you think about cultural, now I think not everyone will be able to, Uh, okay, Swati and Antima, mm, can you tell me, don't your parents or your grandparents, Megha, you may also can tell me, refer to you about the Hindu-Muslim riots that happened during 1947 or around that time? Just anyone volunteer to answer. Anyone from you? You three are there. Prakash is also there. Prakash, I would come to you later. Tajibul, I will also come to you later. But Swati, Antima, and Megha, can you tell me your grandparents? Do they refer to you about anything that happened to the Bihari Muslims during the partition? If not, leave it. Tajibul, Prakash, tell me, have you ever heard of something like that from your grandparents? ঠাকুমা দাদুর কাছ থেকে কখনো শুনেছিস?
ज्यादा कुछ तो नहीं बताया गया है, पर हाँ थोड़ा बहुत बताया गया था कि जैसे ना मेरे घर के पास में ही एक मुस्लिम फैमिली है। तो
बोल।
उनका उनका भी अ, उनका भी जो वंशज है, उनके जो दादा परदादा, तो
हम्म।
उन लोगों के जो दादा परदादा है ना, वो लोग पार्टीशन के समय थे, वो लोग पार्टीशन में भाग लिए थे। तो उनके साथ भी कुछ ऐसा हुआ था। उन लोगों को भारत से, इंडिया से निकालने का एक उस समय का ऐसा सिस्टम चला था, पर ये लोग कहीं से भाग गए थे, तो ये लोग पानागढ़ आ गए थे, ऐसा ऐसा सुने हैं।
So this you have heard from them, and now
यस, यस सर।
when Tajibul, Prakash, tell me, do you have such experiences? Tajibul,
ना सर, सर उनकी सुनी नहीं।
Prakash,
ना सर, मैंने भी नहीं सुना है।
कुछ भी नहीं सुना है, ठीक है। तो अभी let me tell you now, when uh, the thing is that also is very much rooted in the cultural difference. Mm, the most affected states during the partition were, what is happening?
ओए सर कहाँ चले गए हैं? कोई है?
Now, ठीक है. I think you can listen to me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my connection was badly interrupted. Sorry. So let me share my screen again. So what I was saying about was post memory. So this type of experiences, I was talking about the cultural differences. The most affected states during partition was obviously the states of Punjab and the states of Bengal, as you all know. But the thing is that what happened as a result of this? As a result of this, these states, the people, their memory, their experiences, these got invaded with the trauma of partition. And now I talked about the collective and the personal. Then I just left another term that was cultural. So, can you tell me how can an experience become cultural? What is culture? Can you tell me what is culture? A culture is something that is accepted by the tribe. Okay, so if you try to search the definition of culture, what does it say? The arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collective. And then the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. So, the definition of culture always, what happens, Megha and Tajibul? Both of them have raised hands. What happened?
नो
Tajibul?
सर, वो गलती से हो गया,
बस
गलती से हो गया।
भूल कर होएगा जैसे।
Oh, ठीक है, ठीक है. Okay, so the thing is that culture is the practice of art as well as other manifestations which are collectively accepted by the group. So, what are the arts? Music, literature, sculpture, painting, photography, drama. So, I think so far as you have read or you have searched the context of partition literature, I will not have to explain you more that for Punjab and Bengal, partition have been a very important subject in context of culture. So we can think that the culture of these two states were influenced by partition. Dramas were written, movies were made, songs were written. Like there is a famous song in YouTube, if you can listen, Moder Kono Desh Nai. Okay, so that song is obviously based on partition. So these type of things, partition literature, partition movies, partition songs. So you can say that these are the cultural impacts of partition. And when Manik Bandyopadhyay was writing Final Solution, or Dibyendu Palit was writing Alam's Own House, neither you nor I was there. But still, we are having it It is coming from generation after generation. And your next generation will also read about this. So that's how partition will also become a part of your cultural memory. Now, tell me, I had told you that there are memories. Those people who were living like our grandparents who had experienced the partition while living as an adult during the 1947 and the after years, they directly experienced, understood the trauma, the triumph, and everything, the gain and the loss that is related to partition. And if you think of your parents, they were during that time juvenile, or I am speaking about the second generation. Those who were living as adults during that partition time were the first generation. They had the direct experience of the thing, and their memories are much more elaborate, enlarged, and vivid and prominent regarding the situation of partition. And if you think about their children, they were juvenile during the partition. They will have faded memories of those incidents, as if uh, you, after 5 years, will recollect your childhood in a faded way. Even now, if you think, you cannot prominently recollect what had happened to you when you were 2 or 3 years old, can you? কেউ পারিস? I do not think. আমি পারি না। But we make a story, or rather a memory, about our childhood by listening to the narrative of those events from our parents. Like if you have a picture of your first birthday, you will not have any memory of that. But your parents, your most probably your mother, will tell you about what happened during that, and you frame a kind of virtual picture in your memory. And obviously, because you have flashes of moments of those times, what happened in your 2 or 3 years, you have flashes of scenes, and those are properly aided by the narrative from your parents, and together they form your memory. The same thing happened to the second generation. They had flashes of the scenarios guided by the narratives from those who had directly experienced it. And through that, they built their memories. Moreover, what they had was the time that used to bear the effect of partition. The situation that was still hot, not as red as the lava or the magma, but still hot enough to give you the clue of what had happened. Okay, so that is the second generation memory. And if you come to the memory of their children, Or in that case, if you think about partition, it comes to us, because we are the third generation. If it comes to partition, you will find that we do not have any memory of that time. We do not have any brief flashes of memory, even because we were not living then. The effects were directly experienced, the traumas were directly experienced by your grandparents or my grandparents as elders, and the indirect effect came to your or mine parents because they were juvenile then. But now, at your time, everything has settled down, everything has cooled down. So, you are lucky enough if you have still your grandparents living, but they are so aged that they even cannot now remember clearly what happened to them. If they are in strong condition of mind, then you are lucky. But what mostly you have to know from of that time is the secondary memory that your parents had, with flashes of moments from that time that they saw in their childhood, guided by the narrative of their parents. So you can understand that this now the passivity of the memory is doubly redoubled. I love to use this term from Macbeth. The passivity of the memory is now doubly redoubled. You depend on your parents whose memory were built depending on the narrative of their parents. So what you will call it? This the critics call post memory or beyond memory, because now you directly have nothing which you can call your memory. But as you grow up listening to these things, you can virtually imagine what had happened to them, because you had seen those men and women and you just put them in a scenario like this in your vision, and you love to contemplate on that. So now a part of your memory is of listening to those stories. That is a part of your memory, that you listened to these stories. But the story you listened is also a part of your memory. But these stories, the visuality of these stories, are not a part of your memories. These are your thoughts. Now you think about them. Listening to the story is a part of your memory, but the story is only stored in your memory as information. But when you visualize it, essentially that visualization is mixed with your own understanding of the event. Like if you listen to anything from your grandmother or from your father regarding your grandmother or grandfather, you can visualize it. Why? Because you have the face of your grandfather and your grandmother in your mind, and you can place them in a certain kind of setting that matches with your father's narrative. So, listening to your father's narrative, the words he is saying, these are the part of your memories, that your father is telling you something. And when your father tells you the story, when you visualize that story, that is never a part of your memory because you were never inside that story or inside that narrative. That narrative were probably neither was a part of your father's experience also, but that was an experience of your grandfather. Your father also had listened to it from him, and now he is telling it to you. So you can understand the passivity, the distance between you and the experience. There are so many layers. So the experience is not your memory, but the narration is in your memory. So you memorize the narration and you put the experience in your thought, and now you can visualize it. So that's why it is something which is beyond memory, which comes after memory, and that's why it is called post memory. If anyone has any question regarding that, may ask me. कोई क्वेश्चन है तो भी बोलो, कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो भी बोलो, so that I can go to the next stop. Hello, anyone? Do you have any question? No, sir, no question. Okay, so now keeping this concept of post memory in mind, let me go to the initial discussion of the story Alam's own house. Acha, Anupam, তুই পরে এলি. I think you should listen to the recording. I have recorded the class. I hope this will help you, okay?
ओके सर।
আবার কোনটা বেরিয়ে গেল? মেঘা। যাই হোক, দাঁড়া, এবার গল্পটায় যাব। হ্যাঁ রে, তোরা ছট পুজো করলি, কেউ মাস্ক পরেছিলিস না কেন রে?
স্যার আমি পড়েছিলাম।
কোথায় পরেছিলিস? ছবিগুলোতে তো একটাতেও মাস্ক নেই।
শুদ্ধ পিকটা নেওয়ার জন্য মাস্কটা খুলে দিলাম, নাহলে
কেন
পুরো পুজো।
খুলবি? ওই ভিড়ের মধ্যে কেন খুলবি? মাস্ক আমি দেখেছি হাতে ঝুলছিল, কেন?
सर
ভাই
हम तो गए ही नहीं घाट पे।
तूने गई थी नहीं, घाट पे नहीं गई? अच्छा है,
नहीं
बहुत अच्छा।
मेरे घर में छठ नहीं होता है ना।
अच्छा, ठीक है। ओ, लेकिन जिसके भी घर हुआ है, ये एक था अंतिमा और एक था वो तेरा थर्ड सेमेस्टर का श्वेता, दोनों ने हमने देखा है। और बाकी सारा जिसका भी पिक्चर देखा है, कहीं पे भी मास्क नहीं था। अच्छा चलो, ओके, सो लेट अस गो टू दिस वन, आलम्स ओन हाउस. आई थिंक यू कैन सी दिस. देखते पाচ্ছিস?
यस सर।
Okay, so look at the title, Alam's own house, আলমের নিজের বাড়ি. The first thing that will come into question, obviously, while we continue to read this text, is the cultural difference and religious difference between the Hindus and the Muslims. Then, how did it work very intricately during the partition? Was it only hatred, or was it sometimes cooperation, or was it sometimes pressurized cooperation? So, to know the background of the story, let me tell you something. During partition, we only read about the riots between Hindus and Muslims, killings and rape of Hindu women by the Muslims, of Muslim women by the Hindus. Same happened. The Hindus didn't spare those Muslim as well. The men will always be men, you know. So, but are these the only thing? Are these the only thing you hear? No. If you read the memoirs by those who survived, who cross-bordered from either side, from this side to that, from that side to this, the Muslims who tried to go to Bangladesh, the Hindus who tried to come to this part of the border. I would not say Bangladesh, rather I should say Purva Pakistan. while I am referring to partition. And when I will come to this story, I will have to refer to Bangladesh. So let me tell the history briefly. You will find that most of them, I would say most of them, not only many, but I would say most of them, we must know history properly. We only read the history books. We forget to read the narrative of people. We forget to read the interviews. We only read the history books, the class coded text, which are always written with hidden political agendas. Let me tell you clearly, history is not people's voice. Historiography, the process of writing history, is obviously motivated by the culture of politics, the culture of pressurization, and obviously, as Foucault had said, history has been manipulated by power. Whenever, at any time, one writes a history book or one writes something which is related to historiography, at that moment, he or she, that very human being, is very much motivated by his culture, his religion, or the concept of power he believes in. And that's why, at any moment, anything that history speaks about, you will find that they speaks about powerful men, they speaks about the manifestation of their power. It may be a powerful man or a powerful tribe or a powerful society. History always speaks about powerful clashes, someone's importance, someone's this deeds. Obviously, he could do these things because he had powers. But any history book, you will find that seldom any history book speaks about people's narrative. Seldom any history book speaks about what people had said during those times, what people would do during those times. Let me tell you, the process of historiography or proper documentation of time in India started during the time of the British people. And obviously, you can see that during those times, or if you see the Islamic narratives, because the Hindu rulers were not very much interested in procuring the data regarding their time. They had not written any books regarding that. We seldom find any book. But the Muslim rulers, then the European rulers, they had so many narratives, so many historiographies. And after that, after the Britishers, they left the country, the governments that preceded or that succeeded, sorry, not preceded, that succeeded the Britishers, the Congress government, then the BJP government, they obviously form narratives according to their own power politics. লাইক দেখবি আগের গভর্নমেন্টের কোনো কাজকে এই গভর্নমেন্ট নিজের করে চালিয়ে দেয়, এটা সব সময় আছে, ইট হ্যাপেন্স বিকজ দে নোজ দ্যাট 10 বছর আগের ন্যারেটিভ লোকে তো ভাবছে না, এখনকার ন্যারেটিভটা আমি যদি তৈরি করে দিয়ে যাই, পিপল অফ দিস টাইম উইল রিড দিস ন্যারেটিভ। অনেক পুরনো ব্রিজের মানে এই যে ন্যারেটিভ গুলো পাল্টে দেওয়ার ছোট ছোট এক্সাম্পল গুলো তোদের দিই, দেখবি নতুন কোনো গভর্নমেন্ট এলেই পুরনো ব্রিজের সব কারা কারা তৈরি করেছে তাদের নেম প্লেট গুলো সব ভেঙে ফেলে দিয়ে এই গভর্নমেন্টের নামে লাগিয়ে দেওয়া হয়, একটু কালার করে দেওয়া হলো, করে দিয়ে পুরনো যখন ইনিশিয়ালি তৈরি হয়েছে সেই সময়ের ক্রেডিটস গুলো আর দেওয়া থাকে না, সেইগুলোকে সরিয়ে দিয়ে নতুন ক্রেডিটস দেওয়া হয়, ফিউচারেও যে গভর্নমেন্ট আসবে সেও একই কাজ করবে। তো this is also part of history, because when a historian will write about after 30 years or 20 years, when a historian will write about 2019 or 2020, he will see these things, these stones. So that's how history is always manipulated. And that's why I often say, when you, or not only me, but obviously those who try to read people's history, nowadays, I would say the new historicism, or like the cultural critics, they try to read the history in a very new way from the anecdotes, what are the anecdotes? Let me tell you. ক্লাস তো করছি, এখন তো কলেজের চাপ নেই, সিলেবাস শেষ করার চাপ নেই। সো আই থিঙ্ক ডিসকাশনটাকে ইন্টারেস্টিং লাগছে, একটু বলবো এইগুলো শুনবি, নাকি খালি টেক্সট নিয়ে পড়বি তোরা?
না স্যার বলুন।
ভাল লাগছে শুনতে? তাহলে একটু অন্যভাবে বলি, লাইক লাইক দ্য অ্যানেকডোটস, যেটা আমি তোদের বলেছি যে ক্লাসগুলো এখন থেকে আর ওইভাবে টেক্সট ধরে করাবো না, একটু অন্যরকম গল্প বলতে বলতে করাবো। হোয়াট ইজ অ্যান অ্যানেকডোট? অ্যানেকডোটটা হচ্ছে, ধর তুই সমুদ্রের পাড়ে আছিস, হঠাৎ একটা, ইউ ফাইন্ড আ গ্লাস বটল, অ্যান্ড উইদিন ইট there is a script, very fragile because it is very old, and on that script something is written, or on that piece of paper something is written. So what do you see? What do you see? You do not see the what is written in the paper as a whole, because it is folded. Moreover, you just do not see what is written. You see it being filtered by the glass, and you cannot even get the paper. You cannot even get the paper, because if you break the bottle, the paper is so fragile that it will also get damaged. So a secondary information, sometimes it becomes very important. If you collect one after another secondary informations, you will find that a large portion of history is not discovered. That secondary information is called anecdote, which are mentioned not in the direct text, but which are mentioned here and there as scattered pieces of narratives, and you have to collect them. Like, if you read from the newspaper of those times, if you go to the newspaper archives, you read from the newspapers which are not included in the traditional history books. If you meet some people who has survived the time and is still living, you ask question to them, you gather certain information from them which are not directly, maybe not directly related to the time, not directly related to the context in which you want to view it, but which are very important. Like, the Jadavpur University students. So in West Bengal, in most of the cases, I would say, those people who came to Shialda and those who settled in Kolkata area outside the refugee camps, they were settled in Jadavpur, Taliganj, Moyanagar, okay, this side, and a kind of field work they did, and the survey they did, they took the interview of those people, how are they dwelling with, and or what were their experiences during the partition, obviously expecting that they would say about the trauma or their loss, but some of them mentioned, these are the anecdotes, not the mainstream information, but the information that is hidden in their answers. You have to study them, and you have to give importance to those referred incidents. Some of them were referring that the Hindus and Muslims in the pre-partition days, when the wind was still not heavy with religious clashes, during that time in the villages, the Hindus and the Muslims, they enjoyed a very cordial relationship. But they also referred to another thing, that in most of the villages in Bangladesh, these were mainly Hindus, those who have settled in Jadavpur, Moinagor, Taliganj. And they said that we Hindus, their ancestors or our ancestors, they were having the leading role in the villages. And the Muslims, because most of them were uneducated, they had or they were doing the jobs of the laborers in lands or in households. And although there was a kind of cordiality, the Muslim men and women, they also loved the Hindu children. Uh, they respected those Hindu men. But these men and women, they had often referred that somehow there was a slave and master relationship between them. Although it was cordial, but somehow they also found that the Muslims needed to have a share in Bangladesh. The Muslims needed to have a share of the power. And because they didn't have it, those who wanted to name partition, or those who wanted to have partition in the name of religion, they got the upper hand. They got the chance to practically mind wash them, saying that you are being deprived of the power that should have been yours. The Hindus, being a dominant religion, they are making yourselves their laborers. And to some extent, these men and women, they found that the situation was right, but not that bad that these Muslims will go against the Hindus, because the Hindu zamindars or the Hindu social leaders were also taking care of the Muslim poor people. But also they found that the Muslims should have been made educated. The cultural difference could have been curtailed so that the Muslims could be welcomed into the upper sphere of the society as well, more and more. And then this question of cultural dominance in the name of religion would not occur. On the other hand, some of them also said something which is very crucial, that yes, a part of the Muslims, they became very enraged when they were mind washed. They tried to kill the Hindus, abuse the Hindus. But on the other hand, those Muslims who used to be the neighbors of the Hindus, those who used to work in their households, they had sympathies for these men and women. They had respects for these men and women, especially for the children. They had love. So, in most of the cases, these Muslim men and women helped these Hindus to cross the border and land in India safely. And now tell me, did you expect this narrative from the general outline of history that you were provided? Did you expect? Tell me, anyone. Anyone. Antima, Swati, Antima Betty, प्रकाश, ताजिबुल, अनुपम, कोई है यहाँ पे तुम लोग?
हाँ सर।
So tell me, did you expect this narrative?
No, sir.
But these were there. And those Muslims who cross-bordered from West Bengal to East Pakistan, most of them said the same thing, that the Hindus here, they had helped them. Without the help of the Hindus, they could not cross. The Hindus were against them. Obviously, as a class, the Hindus and the Muslims were against each other. Now you can see that partition had two textures, personal and collective. From collective and cultural perspectives, the Hindus and the Muslims were against each other. But from personal perspective, Swati, you referred about your Muslim neighbor. Can you hate him or her?
यस सर,
Can you?
मेरे तो पड़ोसी है सर।
Huh?
सर मेरे नेबर है।
Huh? So can you hate them? Can you just go and kill them? Will you not
बिल्कुल नहीं
support
सर,
them?
बिल्कुल
Will
नहीं
you?
सर।
Huh?
सर हम
So
लोग
that's
के
the
घर में
same.
आना जाना है, मिलना जुलना है, उनके बच्चों से हम लोग का बहुत अच्छा मतलब फ्रेंडशिप है, खाना पीना सब है सर।
ईद के टाइम में खाना आता होगा घर में, छठ के टाइम में तुम्हारे घर से, और या तो हिंदू
यस
फेस्टिवल
सर,
के
यस
टाइम में
सर, यस सर,
तुम्हारे
यस
फेस्टिवल,
सर।
तुम्हारे घर से।
वो लोग हमारे घर में जो पीठा बनता है ना,
हाँ हाँ,
ये
बेटा।
दूज में,
हाँ.
उसके लिए वो लोग वेट करते हैं सर।
So this is the cultural exchange I am speaking about. So look at this. This cultural exchange is very much personal. From the personal perspective, when you think about your neighbor, you do not think about his or her name, which is a Muslim name. You do not think about it. You think of it, or you think of that family only as your neighbor sharing your pain and your happiness. Religion doesn't become a consideration. So that same thing happened during partition. It had both the collective form as well as the personal form. At collective form, the Hindus were against the Muslims, but at personal forms, how could these men and women kill them who had fed them for so long? যে বাচ্চাটাকে এতদিন আমি মানুষ করেছি, how can I help to kill that child? This happened. The Hindu neighbors helped the Muslims from this side to cross the borders. The Muslim neighbors helped the Hindus to cross the border from that side and land safely. So that is another narrative that you find about partition that generally we are not aware of. And when we think about partition, we read about partition, these narratives are washed out. And now, let me tell you another thing. I told you this because in our story, Alam's Own House, we also see that there is an exchange between the Hindu and the Muslim. So this is what happened during 1947 or after that during the years of the riots. But the exchange began long before that. Even before practically the partition happened. After 1943 or 44, the political scenario of Bengal during, with the help of people like Shama Prasad Mukherjee and those RSS people and those of the Muslim League, it happened religiously and politically. It turned out to be very I'd say pathetic, bad, or whatever it is. No consideration for religious uh, openness, or everything became so fanatic. And people, those educated, those who had a kind of access to the political and educational and social hierarchies, those who were to some extent visionary, those who could think about the future, they suspected that this country is now or then, after now or even after 10 years, this country is not going to remain unified after all, and it is going to be partitioned. And therefore, they thought of taking some decisions which would land them into safety. Especially, this was obviously happening with the rich people, because the poor people, they thought that what could happen to them. They were mainly labor class people. They had nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with anything at all which has any kind of importance. Their life is only dependent on the labor they provide to the household or to the land, and against that they earn the wage. They have no importance in any kind of social or national or political matter. So therefore, they thought that they were getting the heat also, but they thought that they were safe. But the rich people, they thought, and obviously, the problem of the rich are the wealth. The first thing that they thinks about is procuring security about their family, their wealth, everything. And they thought that obviously they were going to be the easy targets of the people of the opponent religion, because they obviously had wealth, and with the help of that they had healthy families. So the powerful men are the target of warfare always, obviously, in the power politics, those who have powers. And obviously wealth is power. So that's why these wealthy people, they started exchanging their properties. Like in Bangladesh, let me tell you one very interesting thing. If you read the demography of Bengal uh, during the 1930s and 40s, or uh, till 1950s, sorry, till 1945, and after 1945, you will find a very interesting finding. The thing is that Calcutta and this part of the Bengal was a Muslim dominant area, and Dhaka and other side Moimansingh, which are the major Pabna, which are the major part, which forms the major cultural part of Bangladesh now. These were Hindu dominating areas. It's very interesting, and that's why, or I would not say dominating. I would say that, uh, yeah, I would say dominating, because the Hindus were uh, in the upper, they were having the upper hands in the society in that part of Bengal. At that time, it was Bengal, obviously. And here in Calcutta and around, which is now called as West Bengal, you will find that these parts were demographically had a Muslim majority, and obviously politically, that the first Bengal state government was a Muslim government. Surabati was one of the main culprit, along with Shama Prasad Mukherjee, during the partition of Bengal. So, so this two thing, this, so you can understand that this part of Bengal was Muslim dominated, and politically and powerfully, or all the political powers were mostly in the hands of the Muslim in this side. So these people started exchanging their properties, the people in the power or the people having wealth. And now the very interesting thing is that if you go to Dhaka and if you go to Kolkata and you see the houses of the ancestral houses of those people, the old houses in Kolkata, you will see that these rich men, the architecture of the house, although they are now dwelt by the Hindu families, the houses have Muslim architecture. And in Dhaka, although you can see that those houses are dwelt by Muslim families, Muslim rich families, the architecture of the houses are Hindu architecture. Practically because at the beginning, the houses in this side of Bengal were dwelt by the Muslim and built by the Muslims, and those in Dhaka and Bangladesh were built by the Hindus. And then during the 1943 to 47, or even after that, they had property exchange, like Alam had. Okay, like Alam had. They exchanged their properties. Sometimes they could return, sometimes they could not return. Sometimes the exchange happened before the partition, or sometimes the exchange happened and then they crossed the border. Sometimes one side crossed the border, then they made the exchange, and the other side, then after that, left their house and went to those people's house with the papers in hand. So this type of things happened during the partition. And till 1949, only those people who were related to these rich people, like their household servants, the purohits, the tailors, during that time, the rich people had their own tailors, their own purohits, their own uh, household servants who worked exclusively in that household because they needed to maintain privacy as well. So they were also carried along with them. Only these lower class people, or those people belonging to the lower strata, only this section of the people who worked exclusively in the household of a rich family, among the lower class people or among the people of the lower status, only this section crossed the border before partition. The rest, they didn't think that they had to exchange their place. But after 1950, the situation became worse with the Noakhali riot and the Bihar riot. And then after that, the Nomoshudros, the lower caste people, the lower class people mainly belonged to the Nomoshudro tribe or the scheduled caste tribe. Then only the scheduled caste people, the labor class people, they had to cross the border, not before that. And when these people crossed, they could not exchange anything because they didn't have anything to exchange. They only had a piece of land where they could hardly live. And in most cases, they didn't have that also. They lived in jhopapatis like that. But only they had to flee because they were either Muslims or Hindus, from this side to that, from that side to these. They were working as laborers in the land, laborers in the factories, laborers in the household. They were agricultural farmers or any others like that. They were working with in the shops. They were working in the temples or in the masjids. They were everywhere working as laborers. So now these people started coming during the 1950s. But before that, like what the situation that you find in Alam's own house. These type of property exchange mostly happened before 1949, and even to some extent mostly happened before 1947. Even before the partition, the rich people were well settled. The Hindus in the eastern side of the border, and the yes, the Hindus in the western side of the borders and the Muslims in the eastern side of the borders. They were well settled because they had money. And the lower class people, they came, or they started crossing border after 1949, and they had nothing to do. The thing is that not only the Hindus became refugee at this part of the Bengal, the Muslims who came to who went from this side to that, they also became refugees there in Purva Pakistan. They were also taken as refugees. There were also refugee camps, and even to some extent, like এই যেমন আমাদের ওই দেশ থেকে যারা এসছে, they are called Bangal, they are called Udbastu, they are called Bastuhara, and always they are given a secondary status in the society as if they are the burden. These Muslims who came from this part to that, they were also taken as burdens, and they were called Malauns. You know who are the Malaun? Malaun are those who had who used to live in the vicinity of the Hindus, who had Hindu influence in their culture. Like Bangal, their Balahai, they had Muslim influence in their culture, because for long they had lived in a country which are now for the Muslims. But we never say that before partition, Bangladesh was a Hindu country. And before partition, West Bengal was a Muslim state. So therefore, we do not consider all these things. Bhul bhal ja ichha partition nahi pure. And we do not consider that why these men had to come. Because they wanted to leave. If they could leave, they didn't think about coming to this part. Apart from the rich people, these poor people, they didn't thought of crossing the border until or unless their life were threatened. At the initial stages, they had thought that the partition will never affect them because they were not politically important. But now they thought yes, because the votes were now being done, the politics were now being done in the name of religion. And that's why these people now, they are prominent vote banks. And therefore, when the vote is being run in the name of religion, these people's religious identities will be more important. And therefore, someone who is belonging to the religion that is not important anymore will be killed, or will be seen as an enemy, will be seen as a threat. The same thing happened in this part of India, and then the same thing happened in that part of East Pakistan. In this part of India, the Muslims were seen as threats. In that part of India, the Hindus were that part of East Pakistan, the Hindus were seen as threats, and they were thrashed out. While we think about the refugees, we never consider this situation, that at which situation these people, they had to cross borders. And now, if you think about another certain thing, it is very interesting. Just let me add it to this. Those who came from here and there, you will find that not only the Hindus came from East Pakistan to India, and not only the Muslims, they left West Bengal and went to East Pakistan. The opposite also happened. The Muslims, the demography that shifted, the demography of migration is very interesting. The Muslims also came to this part. Which Muslims? I had given you the clue. Now, I had told you that this part of Bengal were a Muslim majority area, and therefore the powerful posts were the riches uh, were in most cases belonged to the Muslims. But among the laborers there were Hindus. The same happened to the rich Bengalis of that people. They had power in the village. They had post in the village. They were educated, but as laborers in their household, they had so many Muslim families. They would used to take care of, in both cases, if you consider the Muslim laborers or the Hindu laborers, they would take care of the cows, they would do the tailoring, they would do the worship things, they would take care of your markets, they will take care of your bazaar, they will cook for your family, they will wash your clothes, and among them, the people were from different religion. And when you think about labor, they are only laborers. Like in our society, always we are shameful to speak about the lower class people, the scheduled caste people. But the society has never been ashamed of taking the advantage of the scheduled caste or scheduled type people as laborers. ওদের করা কাজ সেটার অ্যাডভান্টেজ নিতে আমাদের কখনো গায়ে লাগে না, বাট ওদেরকে সোসাইটির পার্ট হিসাবে মনে করতে আমাদের গায়ে লাগে। So that's why when you consider the labor, অন্য রিলিজিয়নের লোক হলেও আমাদের কোনো প্রবলেম হয় না। So তাতে করে কি হচ্ছে, in any household, in a Muslim household there were Hindu laborers, in Hindu household there were Muslim laborers. So when these rich households, they exchanged their place, they cross bordered, they took these people along with them. Like কোনো একটা হিন্দু ফ্যামিলি যখন বাংলাদেশ থেকে এদিকে চলে আসছে, কলকাতার দিকে চলে আসছে, ওর বাড়িতে যে লোকটা শাখা পলা বিক্রি করতো, সিঁদুর বিক্রি করতো, ওর বাড়িতে সেই লোকটা কিন্তু চলে আসছে, যে লোকটা জামা কাপড় বানাতো চলে আসছে, যে লোকটা গরু বাছুরের খেয়াল রাখতো চলে আসছে, যে লোকটা বাজার করতো সেও চলে আসছে। ইন মোস্ট অফ দি কেসেস দিস ওয়ার মুসলিমস। এদিক থেকে যখন একটা হিন্দু লোক চলে আসছে, তার বাড়িতে যে লোকটা পাঁঠার মাংস কাটে, তার মানে এদিক থেকে যখন যখন একটা মুসলিম লোক যখন এদিক থেকে চলে আসছে, তার বাড়িতে যে লোকটা রান্না করে বা তার বাড়িতে যে লোকটা বাজার করে, এদের মধ্যে কিন্তু অনেক হিন্দু ছিল। তো এদিক থেকে যখন মুসলিম একটা ফ্যামিলি চলে আসছে, তার সঙ্গে অনেক হিন্দু চলে আসছে। আবার ওদিক থেকে যখন একটা হিন্দু ফ্যামিলি চলে আসছে, তার সঙ্গে অনেক মুসলিমও চলে আসছে। সো the demography of migration is not so simple as খালি মুসলিমরা এদিক থেকে ওদিকে চলে গেছে, খালি হিন্দুরা ওদিক থেকে এদিকে চলে এসেছে। আবার তুই একটা জিনিস দেখতে পাবি, you can see that some Hindus, they decided not to leave Bangladesh because they thought that these situations should have been protested. This is their land, this is their motherland, and in no cost they are going to leave that. The same happened with some Muslims in this place. They never wanted to leave India as a country. They thought that new country was not their home. They had taken birth in India, their ancestors have lived in India, and they have dreamed of an independent India, and they will not leave this India at all. So some Hindus, I'll say a large number rather, not larger, but not, I'd say large. You cannot say it's a very meager number. A very large amount of Hindu people, they decided to stay in Bangladesh, and a very large number of Muslims, they decided to stay in India. Not say Bangladesh, but rather Purva Pakistan. So, with this context in background, we will obviously focus on those people who exchanged their land either in those days previous to partition or before 1949, maybe during that time or after partition, and those rich people who had properties, the exchange between the rich people. Keeping that in mind, we will start reading Alam's Own House. Okay? And obviously, At the very beginning, I would begin with the story regarding the independence of Bangladesh, or the birth of Bangladesh in 1971, and how that changed the demography or the political equation to some extent. Because at the very beginning, the story says Bangladesh, rather, it is uh, Bangladesh Biman aircraft. So it is no more East Pakistan. The story we read is about Bangladesh. So in the next phase, I would continue that how the legacy of partition continues with the birth of Bangladesh, and how still, even in that Bangladesh, the post memory, the partition as a culture becomes evident. Okay, so আজকে এইটুকু থাক। আই থিঙ্ক আজকে যেটা বলেছি পার্টিশন সম্পর্কে ইকুয়েশন গুলো অনেকটা পাল্টেছে, একটু ঝালিয়েছি পুরোনো গুলোই, বাট পার্টিশন সম্পর্কে ইকুয়েশনটা কি একটু পাল্টেছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, তাজিবুল, এনি কোয়েশ্চেন? তাজিবুল, আর ইউ দেয়ার? প্রকাশ,
यस सर।
কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে?
नो सर।
পার্টিশনের কনসেপ্টটা ক্লিয়ার হয়েছে?
यस सर।
অন্তিমা? Okay,
Yes,
Swati?
sir, no problem.
No problem. Swati, everything is okay?
Yes, sir. No problem.
I think as a background, this was enough. And in the next class, the half of the class will be dedicated to the Bangladesh concept, and then we will begin the text. Okay, and maybe although we have a class on Friday, maybe I will try to take an extra class with you, maybe on Tuesday evening. Okay.
ওকে স্যার।
Okay, and okay, so maybe please give me a reminder on Monday regarding that. Okay, personally, not in the group. Give me a reminder of that on Monday, that sir, you are going to take a class with us on Tuesday evening. Okay?
ওকে স্যার।
Okay, so for now, I think for today it's done. Okay, so let me see everyone's face. कैसे दिख रहा है सब लोग, एक बार तो दिखने दो। ओके, अच्छे लग रहा है सब, ভালো লাগছে বেশ। হ্যাঁ রে অনুপম, কোথায় আছিস রে? তোর এত ঠান্ডা লাগছে? মিউট করা আছে তোর, তোর কিচ্ছু শুনতে পাচ্ছি না আমি।
স্যার বাড়িতেই আছি, কিন্তু ঠান্ডা লাগছে।
प्रचंड ठंडा पड़े ना कि? अंतिमा कहाँ पे है बेटी? तू अभी भी अपना मुंह छुपा के बैठा है? हाँ, ये छुप के खाना खा रहा है।
सर आप मानकर में सेटल हो गए?